There have been rumors of the Power Five and now Power Four splitting off from the rest of college football in the NCAA for quite a while. It's not something new. It's not just happened over the course of the last couple of weeks or months, whatever the case may be. For about a decade now, there have been at least discussions of like, hey, could this happen? This is how this could happen in the future. And now we're getting to the point where it's a reality, where the people and the power brokers that run the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the ACC are saying, we're kind of tired of the way this is set up, and I don't want to be tired of the way this is set up anymore. So either you guys do what we want you to do, or we're out. So I think you might legitimately be on the verge of the NCAA splitting up. Now, the way it was kind of billed, and I think this is preposterous, is that there would be basically two Division Ones, which the reason the number two exists is because one, like we outgrew one. So I don't think you can have two Division Ones. But, and this isn't just for college football, but obviously that's the focus of the show, is the Power Four get to do pretty much whatever they damn well please, and you just kind of got to be on board with it or you get left behind. And at SEC Media Days, the commissioner, Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, said, quote, not everybody in Division I needs to be involved in the same decision-making the same way. Some of those involved in Division I cannot be in the habit of creating risk for others in Division I. Those are hard issues, end quote. And that's not a new sentiment. I remember reading the comments from Alabama athletic director Greg Byrne, who basically said, if we wanted to fund scholarships for full baseball teams, full softball teams, full gymnastics teams, we could do that. But the Power Four are outvoted by the teams in the Horizon League and by teams in the MEAC and the SWAC and the MAC and all of those leagues that were outvoted. And we're tired of being outvoted. And so when there have been discussions about, potential roster caps down the line or things like that, the power brokers and the big dogs in the sport are going to look out for themselves because they don't want to be in a situation where you can only have 85 total players and they're all on scholarship with no walk-ons and things like that. Now, does that help lower divisions, like lower group of five schools, FCS schools, Division II schools? Yeah, because it all trickles down where, your Notre Dames and Alabamas and Ohio States and USCs and Texases and Oklahomas, they can have 85 scholarship players and then get up to, 110 players with walk-ons and things like that. Well, if you have strict 85 roster limits, some guys who were playing football at big-time schools are going to go down to group of five schools or lesser Power Four schools and get a scholarship. And that kind of hurts the standing of the big dogs, the blue bloods in the sport. So they want to be proactive in making sure that those things don't happen to them. And Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, isn't alone in that. Big 12 commissioner Brett Yormark, when he was at their media days, said, quote, I live by the value equation. Those who create value deserve to be rewarded, end quote. Now, that's it's crazy how that works. I'm sure that if Brett Yormark or Greg Sankey were the commissioner of the Sun Belt or Mountain West, they probably wouldn't be as in favor of those ideals, but they're not. They are in charge of the big-time brands, the conferences that people care more and most about. And as the stewards of those conferences, they have to do what's best for their conferences, for their schools. And if that includes splitting up Division I. Now, I've talked about this before in the past where Derek Dooley, the former Louisiana Tech Tennessee coach, had started to try to get the ball rolling for a group of five playoff. And at first I thought, I don't think that's a great idea. And the more I thought about it, I think that probably is the best situation, because is there a scenario where Liberty or Cincinnati, well, not Cincinnati anymore, Liberty or Memphis or insert whatever group of Boise State Is there a scenario where they rattle off a couple of wins and win a college football national championship? The way the playoff is constructed right now, no, I don't think so. Even if they go on some ridiculous underdog ride, even if they are one of the 8 best teams in the country, I don't think there's a scenario where that happens. And so you can pretend and argue that you're still playing. Like you can pretend that Bowling Green and Toledo and Miami and James Madison and Marshall and Wyoming and San Jose State are all playing the same game as USC and Ohio State and Notre Dame and Alabama and Georgia and Florida and LSU and Clemson and Florida State. You're not. And we've gotten to a point where when money drives and rules everything, to the point where today Greg Sankey was asked about adding Florida State, and he was like, we're not going to slice our pie any more ways. If you're not going to grow the pie, you're not going to be part of the SEC, which I think is a fair statement, but I also think it's ridiculous to think that, like, well, we're only going to get $85 million instead of $100 million. We're not going to, whatever. It's not my money. But when that's your priority, when college football has basically turned into like venture capitalism, that's going to continue to be the priority. And when your money is in danger, or when you are in danger of regulation and you don't have control over whether or not you're regulated, it's not preposterous to think that we are inching ever closer. And I wouldn't be surprised if this gets sped up really quickly to where the Power Four and Notre Dame are splitting off, forming their own governance, their own playoff, for lack of a better term. Because when you look at the NCAA tournament, for instance, March Madness, it's either we're going to expand to where your teams that finished 19-14 and finished in 9th place in the ACC, or finished 18-13 and got knocked out of the Big Ten tournament in the quarterfinals because they lost to an 11 seed. Either we're expanding so those teams make the NCAA tournament, or we're splitting off and making our own tournament, and you fools from the Atlantic 10 and the Horizon League and the Summit League can form your own tournament. For better or worse, the Power Four have all of the power, all of the leverage. And if you want to be associated with them, you either have to play by their rules or they're taking their ball and going home. Does it stink for the little guys? Yeah. But that's the card you get to play when you have the power and the leverage. So don't be surprised if anytime soon you see hey, there is a split. Division I is splitting once again. There, instead of an FBS and FCS, there's going to be an FCS and FBS and a, for lack of a better term, Super League, because that's what we're getting to in college football. And I think it's sooner rather than later. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.